Hello everybody, I'm Snaris, yet again, here continuing with my Ninja Gaiden 4 Master Ninja difficulty walkthrough with Yakumo, and we're moving down into the sewer areas because this is Chapter 8, Drowned District. And as I've said before multiple times, I do not like these missions at all. Drowned District, Realm of Silent Dead, and Bounding Spirits. I do not like these missions at all. Some of my least favourite in the game, probably even more so than the Valley ones, because at least with the Valley ones you can skip them. In these ones, apart from Realm of Silent Dead where you can skip quite a few optional fights, in this mission in particular you cannot skip a lot of fights. You can skip that one of course, but I just have to mention that when it comes to these fish enemies here, while I do recommend running away, these fish enemies are so fucking annoying. They still get to me, and they still get under my skin. And you notice as well, there's a few new enemies. And I'll get to them in a second. Yeah, I got a lot of negative things to say about this, but I'll try to keep my bitching to a minimum, if that will make things better with all you. Now, those fish enemies, you're better off using the staff weapon to deal with them. Because what they'll do is the moment you try to do an ultimate attack or you try to do any sort of major attack at all, these things swarm you like crazy and they interrupt you. I've seen what happens when you let them touch you, and when you get a whole bunch of them together and they start swarming and biting you, they latch onto you, they never let go, and they do so much damage. Like individually they're fine, but all together, when each of them bite you just once and latch on, sure you can keep on hitting them and doing regular attacks to knock them off, but yeah, those things are just so annoying. So deal with them quickly. You'll also notice this big boy here. He is a fiend that takes a shit ton of damage. He's the equivalent of those massive DDO soldiers that you fought earlier on in the game. Just be careful of these dudes here, because these DDO soldiers are back and they've got a couple of the shuriken guys that like to throw bombs everywhere, a couple of those guys with the glaives that do all the breakdancing moves, really crazy stuff. But before as well, you notice there are a couple different fiend enemies as well. The first of which being one that had these sort of flames going around them. They'll become a lot more prominent later on, so you know, I'll elaborate more on that. But they basically duck into the ground and use the floor, and they skate all over the place, avoiding damage, and then they pop out and smack you. And the dogs are going to be a very big enemy that you'll see quite often. More shuriken bullshit. This guy's a bastard. Look how fast he's going and just how much he's running away. And I leap. Oh, it's getting me mad just seeing it. Just trying to track down this one guy who's just jumping all over the place and avoiding your attacks. And you end up landing right into one. And you can't avoid it. But yeah, you got these dog enemies, and they don't take as much damage as you would think. They're very easy. They're basically made of papier-mâché. Take almost no damage, but you let them bite you, they can hold you there, and other enemies will attack you in the same time. So, funny story really, when I was doing this level, this guy for some reason was just avoiding all my attacks, or he was just powering through them all, which is not common for him, and he's just taking an abnormally large amount of damage and I have no idea why. Like even more so from what he's used to doing. So he's almost killed me here and messed me up. But I must have re-recorded this entire mission just from the beginning to now several times over. And luckily you can still go back up and go to the terminal just to stock back up again. So you go ahead and do that if you have to. But those dogs will bite and grab you, and the difference between the blue and the purple glowing dogs is that the purple ones are bigger, they're faster, they do more damage, they're a lot more evasive, whereas the blue dogs are just straight up will just go for you, whereas the purple dogs play a bit more defensively. They're not even really that much of a worry, but some encounters they just shove tons of them in your face, and then they become quite worrying, especially when you've got other enemies you've got to contend with. By the way, if you're fighting these shuriken guys one-on-one or with multiple people and you get them in the air, don't rush into the Izuna drop, because if they'll end up blocking it, and if they get ready to block it, you know, they turn white, they've got a white outline and they put their guard up. Just hit guillotine, throw them. And now begins the long string of reasons why I do not like these missions, and it's these long ass fights that you have to do, and you cannot move on until you beat them. And you've got these dudes here that are absolutely no threat, but there's just so many of them to fight, unreasonably so. But I don't know if I'm just being stupid, but there are some variants of these guys that will stand to the side, stand away from you, and they'll start vomiting towards you, and their projectiles are so accurate and they do it so often. But there's no visual cue to tell the difference. They just stand further away and that's the best you've got. Otherwise, I don't know how to tell them apart. They're not coloured differently, they don't have a different appendage, or if they do, I can't really tell. They look so similar to all the others. It's so annoying. But you can at least use them and kill them very quickly to get obliteration kills. They'll drop red orbs as long as you stay still and don't move around so much so that they disappear, or you suck them in to get a little bit of health back. You can just sort of charge up an ultimate attack and you can take care of those orcs with the big cleavers. But as you can tell, yeah, this fight's been going on for about a minute and a half or so. It feels a lot longer than it actually is, but that's still not a good thing. So yeah, get the berserk state, go nuts with it, and eventually you'll have these giant, sort of wormy butthole with teeth looking things come out, and they create portals, and they've got little shrine gates above them. And what these things do is they continually spawn in a certain type of enemy, usually just like a small one, like these little zombies or dogs or whatever. You need to kill them immediately. Luckily they don't take too much punishment, but I make this mistake all the time because I'm so used to doing the sweep attack that when I try to kill these shark things I'm talking about with the sweep attack, where I stand up on my sword and I come down and swipe down, because the angle is always so awkward, what happens is I get caught on the shrine head and I end up completely missing the shark with my attack. And even then, I don't know why this happens, unless I'm using the finishing move in the berserk state, my charged bloodbind attacks against these things here don't kill it instantly. And it should. So look at that. Just, it clashes. You know, with one simple combo you can kill these things, but it took 3 bloodbind attacks like that to finish it off, on top of everything else I threw at it. That's some bullshit. So yeah, just keep charging up. These fiends here, this is what I'm talking about. These things that have flame growing out of their hands, stomach and face. Yeah, these things are dangerous. Don't underestimate them. Like, for a little while they're not so bad, but when they duck into the ground they become dangerous. You can launch them, you can put them in a Azuna drop, but when you've got several of them, or you mix them with other enemies, that's when it becomes a little bit tricky. And what you'll be facing here is a stairwell that spirals down, and you can skip all this. Well, except for a shark, one of those shark portal things, you will have to kill it to be able to get by, because you cannot get through otherwise. And look at that, completely missed. Like, if you can get caught on the top of that and miss an attack like that when you're coming straight down, you should be able to jump over that. But yeah, I'm just going to avoid all these fights, just carry on through. If you jump off to the left, I skipped it out, I cut it out, but if you jump off to the left, there'll be a small group of enemies that you can fight. I didn't bother fighting them, I came back and that's why I cut this. Now this enemy here, this is an absolute cunt of a thing. I hate this enemy so much, probably more so than any other than the game I've got beef with, because sometimes when it does a special attack like that, and you do interrupt it, for some reason it doesn't register and he still does it. He throws projectiles at a distance, which are pretty fair, admittedly. He does this flame breath that, yeah, and that pouncing attack, you can barely see it, especially down in the dark here. And these things take way more punishment than you think. So you have to either duel them fairly and wait for them to attack so you can counter them, because they're very aggressive. So they're not quite as difficult as they're making them out to be, but if you let them take advantage of you, or if you let your guard down, or you're trying to be in a rush to kill it, then it can take advantage of you and you can get screwed. And especially when you have one of those things, or even 2 of those things, and multiple enemies. But there'll be much better examples of how I deal with those things later on, and, you know, maybe a couple more horror stories. But speaking of horror stories, this here is just an absolutely tedious fight. With this many, like these zombie like fiendish mushroom spory kind of thing enemies lying around, and how easy they are to deal with, there's no shortage of orbs that I can use to charge up my ultimates. And so all of this becomes extremely trivial. Now, there is no boss fight at the end of this, but there's another one of those fights, you know, after you're chasing the shark that swallowed Sayori, which I'm not even sure. Like, I get that it's an interdimensional shark of some kind and it can create portals and shit, but I don't understand how it could swallow Sayori and keep her alive. Like, I thought she would have been dead. So the Darkness Terminal here, just go ahead and use it. But Cetus is technically, I would say, a pretty well designed boss fight, but I do not like him, and that's mostly in the second phase, because he has this bullshit where he goes for a special attack and you use a bloodbind attack and you get ready for them, but then he just suddenly teleports beside you or behind you, and it's usually into that stupid grab he does that's extremely hard to dodge no matter what you do, and it does so much damage and it takes up so much of your time, and it's just annoying to deal with. So again, it's another one of those mechanical arm cases, because when it goes into a special attacks, it's always so fast and you don't have much time to react. So here all you have to do really is just take out the two shark portals on either side of this room and then deal with all these dogs and these fishies. Ideally first, otherwise they won't start coming. But before we get round to Cetus and what he gets up to and everything, I just want to drop a quick mention to Vailtol, or Vailil? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's kind of insignificant how, well, it just goes to show how insignificant a lot of these bosses is. There's no sort of meaning to them, no rivalry built up, no hype or nothing. They just pop out of nowhere and you've got to fight them. And while Ninja Gaiden, as I've said, doesn't have great bosses historically, you know, I think, now that I've mentioned before, I did a tier list on Tier List Maker for Ninja Gaiden 4 bosses, and the three bottom ones in the F category, like, for actually legitimately horrible bosses, I think besides Sanzayan, which we've already fought before in Chapter 5, and Vailtol, which we're going to fight in the next chapter, there was also the Chariot, when you go to raid the facility of the Divine Dragon Order. And that's the end of Chapter 11. So we're pretty close to that. Yeah, I hate the Chariot so much, it's so bad. But yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, how many of these levels, design and everything and aesthetics all put together, how many of them are actually really good? Because Chapter 1's really good, Chapter 2 and 3 are okay, Chapter 4's kind of dull, Chapter 5 is annoying, Chapter 6 is just repetitive, Chapter 7 is good, because it's just a boss fight and it's a good boss fight. Chapter 8, which is this one, is just boring. Chapter 9 is also kind of boring and it's got a terrible boss to boot. Chapter 10 would be a good boss fight level if not for the massive chase sequence slash enemy gauntlet you have to deal with before you get to him. Just so annoying. Chapter 11 isn't too bad. I actually like it a lot until you get to the Chariot boss fight and completely stagnates it. I think overall Chapter 12 might be my favourite mission of the game. And while it does technically have a couple of boss fights in the form of a DDO Commander and a Proto-Goliath, they're a lot weaker and you only have to fight one phase of them. And it's got several encounters, lots of enemies that you can't avoid, and it's got all the traversal and all that. It feels the most like a proper level, and I just like the aesthetics of the building that you're in altogether, even if it is a little bit repetitive and a little bit samey. And if you really think about it, the layout of the buildings make absolutely no fucking sense. Like, there's these massive hallways that shouldn't be able to fit anything, all these different turrets placed in weird positions. It feels like an entire like business or office building built specifically for some sort of gauntlet run. Like you're in some sort of roguelike game. Anyway, Chapter 12 is still a pretty good level, all things considered. A little bit repetitive. Chapter 13 is a good mission, because you've got a couple of really good bosses in there. Well, I'm not sure I'd call Achilles a good boss, but he's definitely better than most of them here. And I've got a bit of a strat for that as well, because if you didn't know, if you get to a boss fight at the end of a mission, all you have to do if you're running low on life, or if you're not sure you can handle them, or you're low on items, you just need to pause the game, retry checkpoint, and then you'll start down in this secret room that's usually beneath or off to the side of the boss you've got to fight in the arena, and then when you're done, you can go back out there and you can just fight the boss as if nothing happened. Because I've noticed that when you use an instance of rebirth, if you still end up properly dying and you go retry battle, sometimes you won't have your instance of rebirth, sometimes you won't have the items you used in that fight. And that's a really shit way to do things, I think. As far as the other goes, Chapter 14 is a real quick one, and you'll see why. Chapter 15 and 16 are terrible because it just reruns of the same. 17 is forgivable because it's just a boss rush. No, sorry, not a boss rush. It's just, you fight Kurobo, I think his name was, I remember. Yeah, you fight that weird wind flying wolf thing again, but you've got to fight a gauntlet of enemies first, which is annoying, but I guess it shakes things up a little bit. Chapter 18 isn't too bad because it's short. Chapter 19 can be short if you skip a bunch of enemies, but yeah, Chapter 19 is definitely one of my favourite because the bosses in it are really good. But I'll stop rambling now. We've got a bit of a gauntlet ahead of us of our own with the next mission, one of my least favourite in the game. I'll see you then.